So the Chiefs will upset the masses once again for sure this season if they pull off what a trusted name in the space thinks they will. It's not good news for the rest of the NFL, I'll tell you that much. On the flip side, some fans will find themselves upset regarding the future of Arrowhead's location, and that's whether they stay or go, because there's a bit of an update worth talking about. So I'll break that down, look at the Chiefs' quote-unquote luxury player, recent roster moves, and more. But first, how about those? All right, first up, a sort of surprising Chiefs player was listed as a luxury for the Chiefs, and in his article, Bill Barnwell of ESPN classifies a luxury player as someone who isn't necessarily a guy that's a starter on the depth chart, but is more of a role player or should have a more limited usage. With that said, these players can still be important to the team this year, and that player listed for the Chiefs is running back Kareem Hunt. He goes on to say that Kareem Hunt wasn't great last season. These are his words, okay? But the one thing he did very effectively was convert in short yardage situations. He went 15 of 18, so he converted 83.3% of the time on short yardage, crucial, gotta have it situations. So that was last year after doing something similar the year prior with the Browns. This was helpful because the Chiefs offense lacked explosiveness in both the run and pass game, so a big key to success there was converting multiple times on third down to keep the drives going. Well, Hunt's role was even more important when you consider the fact that the Chiefs will probably never run a quarterback sneak with Mahomes again. So Barnwell's thoughts for KC's running back room this year is with Isaiah Pacheco healthy and Elijah Mitchell added into the mix. It's tough for him to imagine KC relying on Hunt in a featured role this year like they basically had to out of necessity last year. Quote, however, he could still be a useful third running back in the right situations. Okay, so a couple thoughts on this. What Kareem Hunt did for the team last year was awesome, especially considering he was signed week 3 to the practice squad and made his debut week 4 against the Chargers. In that first game, by the way, he carried the ball 14 times for 69 nice yards, which was nearly 5 yards a pop. He could then barely get out of bed the next day, but he did everything he could for the team week in and week out as the primary back for most of the season until Pacheco returned. So you couldn't really ask much more from a guy who had a sports hernia surgery in January and essentially trained on his own from there, coming in with no offseason, no mini camp, training camp, preseason ramp up, none of it. That's why my pushback here is that Kareem Hunt could absolutely be more in this offense than just a role player in short yardage situations, offsetting the workload with Pacheco as a 1-2 punch. The thing is, if Elijah Mitchell is healthy and contributes, the ideal situation is that Kareem doesn't have to be heavily leaned upon and can just be the short yardage back as his primary role, and then if you need more out of him at times, then great, he can do it. I view Kareem a bit like I do Travis Kelce, though of course Kelce is the GOAT in a league of his own, but the biggest win for KC this season is to get Kelce to the playoffs healthy. I think that's a great goal for the soon-to-be 30-year-old running back Kareem Hunt as well. Manage his workload and get him to the playoffs healthy, then let's freaking go. The running back room will be one to watch because they also have the newly drafted 7th rounder in Brashard Smith, as well as the running back fullback hybrid in Carson Steele. I'm doing another way too early 53-man roster projection this week, but in my first one immediately following the draft, I had Steele as the odd man out in the running back room because unless Andy Reid is dead set on keeping a fullback, Tobe can find a replacement for what Steele contributed on special teams, and Kareem Hunt can be the short yardage guy at minimum with better vision and better ball security. I'd love to get your thoughts and opinions on this though. What do you see Kareem Hunt's role being this year, and do you think Carson Steele makes the initial 53-man roster this year like he did in 2024? And then before I talk about a couple roster moves the Chiefs made recently, I want to talk about Rich Eisen having a take about the Chiefs for the 2025 season that definitely has most NFL fans not happy. But first, most of you may not know this. I don't talk about it a lot, but I've had skin issues for years. Dry skin, redness, irritated skin, and there have been times growing up where I've even had to use prescribed medication to help me out. Well, the good news is committing to better skin doesn't have to be difficult, and that's why I've partnered up with Geology to bring you this sponsored video. You see, everyone has unique needs when it comes to skincare, and Geology creates simple and effective skincare and hair care routines customized just for you with ingredients that are proven to work. It all starts with a 60-second quiz to help identify your skin goals, and they will develop a derm-grade personalized routine and deliver it straight to your door. Well, that's exactly what I did, and Geology tailored their routine to benefit me the most, and honestly, my skin feels pretty good so far, which helps my confidence on camera because you guys are the ones that have to stare at my bald-headed self in these videos several times a week. The simplicity of the entire process is what won me over, and my decision to trust Geology was helped by the fact that they have over 10,000 5-star reviews. They make the entire process super easy to follow, labeling the order you're supposed to use the products and also whether they are for morning or evening, nighttime, daytime. And that simplicity has helped me continue using everything they sent over. So what are you waiting for? Use my code CHIEF70 and grab 70% off your personalized skincare trial set plus a free gift of your choosing. And on top of that, there's also that 50% off on add-ons waiting for you. All right, real quick, KC's training camp dates have officially been announced by the team. The first day is Tuesday, July 22nd, rather than what I thought was going to be Monday, July 21st. If you click the link in the description down below, you can see which days are open to the public versus only season ticket members, and then you can see which days there will be no practice and which position groups are doing autographs that day, and I think that's also where you can get tickets. But that means we are just about a month away, with camp lasting from July 22nd all the way until August 13th. It's also worth noting that the full list of joint practices between teams during training camp got announced, and once again, the Chiefs are thankfully not on this list. This is definitely for the better because the main highlights of joint practices seem to be fights that break out, and things seem to get heated pretty quickly more times than not. Andy Reid's training camps are brutal enough on their own, being infamously known as one of the hardest camps in the entire league. That's why they don't need other teams as motivation to take things up a notch, and this is also why nothing needs to change. The Chiefs have been one of the most successful teams in NFL history, so if it's not broke, there's no need to fix it. Next up, after 35 years as the team's mascot, Dan Meers, who donned the KC Wolf mask for 3.5 decades, announced his retirement last week. What a journey for Dan all these years. I remember him speaking at my elementary school when I was a kid, and I know many of you probably remember that as well. I also can't forget about the crazy story, the scary incident he had in 2013, I believe it was, when he crashed to the ground from a zip line jump attempt and he broke 7 ribs. Dan spent 9 days in the hospital and had to take 6 months off for physical therapy to recover from that fall. He was already a legend in my eyes before the injury, but to rehab back from that and come back doing it for another 10 years or so, tip of the cap to the man, Dan Meers. Another guy well respected in the NFL space is longtime sports show host Eisen. Well, he triggered the masses last week when he predicted the Chiefs' record for the 2025 season, and buckle up because he exceeded even my own expectations with this one. Long story short, the Chiefs are going to, in his opinion, beat the Chargers, Eagles, Giants, Ravens, Jags, Lions, Raiders, and Commanders 8 wins in a row, going 8-0 before traveling to Buffalo and losing, because that's what typically happens. The Bills typically beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Well, that means Rich has the Chiefs at 8-1 heading into the bye week, and since they're coming off a bye, he has them beating the Broncos, then the Colts, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers again, and the Titans before sadly losing to the Broncos on Christmas. No thank you. From there, they rest their starters week 18 and still beat the Raiders, which would be fantastic cinema because that would mean Gardner Minshew would be the starter that day, and he would be taking on his former team and the Raiders. Please, God, let this happen. Anyway, that would have the Chiefs finish the season 15-2 and lock up the 1 seed in the AFC once again to get that coveted first-round bye. Rich's reasoning behind this is because until the Chiefs show something different, he's done betting against them. He learned his lesson big time a few years ago when he predicted the Raiders to win the AFC West in 2022, and they ended up finishing 6-11 while the Chiefs went 14-3. So he definitely seems to have learned from his old ways. I think the Chiefs might lose a couple more games than that, to be honest, but I would much rather take 15-2 once again, so sign me up. The Bills do seem to have the Chiefs' number in the regular season, but that's fine. They can freak out like they won a regular season Super Bowl per usual. My only request is, please beat the Broncos on Christmas, even if that means losing to them coming off the bye week. A win on Christmas is way better for the holiday than a loss. That loss to the Raiders on Christmas a couple years ago, I know you guys remember that, and it was probably the worst L of the entire regular season. But hey, what record do you see the Chiefs having once all is said and done? Are you more in line with my thinking, probably around 12 or 13 wins, or nah? 15-2 for the second year in a row. Next up, the Chiefs made a few recent roster moves as they shuffle around the 90-man roster in preparation for training camp. After signing offensive guard Tremayne Anchrum back on May 16th, he was released right after the conclusion of mandatory minicamp late last week. The team also waived tight end Kevin Foelsch, a guy they just signed to the roster on June 11th. From there, they signed center Joey Lombard, and while the move hasn't been made official at the time I'm recording this video, the agency of tight end Jorquarius Spivey announced he was going to sign back with the Chiefs once again. Spivey has been signed twice now in back-to-back off seasons after a successful tryout. And the reason for that is pretty simple. Both Jake Brenningstool and Trey Watson are a bit banged up. Meanwhile, Jared Wiley is still rehabbing from that repaired ACL. So Spivey is most likely a depth piece guy for camp because you need bodies at every position for multiple defenses. First team, second team, third team, fourth team. But for what it's worth, Spivey did play for UFL's Houston Roughnecks this past spring where he caught 7 passes for 65 yards. So he has been working and training. Speaking of tight ends real quick, Tight End University officially started today. It was founded in 2021 by George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Greg Olsen. And this is an immersive 3-day program to help elevate the game for other tight ends all around the league. But back to the roster moves real quick, specifically regarding the newly signed Joe Lombard. He was a 4-year starter at USD, playing mostly center with a little bit of left guard experience sprinkled in, and was extremely durable all throughout his college career. He, like Spivey, is probably a depth piece guy for the third or fourth team offense, but you can't rule out him potentially climbing up the ranks. It's just going to be a pretty tough room to crack. Still though, so many guys dream of this opportunity their entire life, so to actually get the chance is something they'll do everything in their power to try and make a lasting impression on the coaching staff. And for that reason, I'm definitely rooting for these guys. All right, next up, we might potentially have some good news regarding the Chiefs and the future of Arrowhead Stadium. They reportedly had 5 pieces of land they had contracts on to purchase if they wanted to move over to the Kansas side of the state line, and these potential locations is where a brand new stadium would in theory be built, and after the lease of Arrowhead Stadium expired in 2031, they could then play in said brand new stadium. Well, Kevin Keitzman, stick with me here, of KCMO Talk Radio, shared today that a source told him the Chiefs have let those contracts expire and have canceled them or not let them renew. And what's going on right now back and forth is the posturing from Kansas offering star bonds to help fund a good chunk of a new stadium over on that side of the border. And then Missouri did their own version of this. Senate Bill 3 got passed. It's climbing up the ranks right now, and it authorizes the state to issue bonds valued at up to half the cost of stadium projects for the Chiefs. Where the Royals are going to go, I have no idea. Right now, at this point in time, I'm mainly focused on the Kansas City Chiefs. Will they go get a new stadium in Kansas or Missouri, or will they stay in the coveted, historical Arrowhead Stadium? And it looks like they could be trending towards doing just that, remodeling parts of Arrowhead and staying there for years to come. I love that for a couple different reasons. Obviously, it's historical, one of the oldest stadiums in the business, but it also helps with crowd noise. The way that it's structured, the way that it was built actually helps the crowd noise get even louder, which is part of the home field advantage. And then obviously you play in the elements. Some say, hey, if you're going to build a new stadium, just let them build a retractable roof and then they can still play in the elements. Any extreme elements, they are closing that roof. You're not getting rain games. You're not getting snow games. You're not getting Chiefs and Dolphins playing that really cold game in the playoffs a couple years ago. The counter to that is, well, the fans then also don't have to go into the elements. No extreme cold or extreme heat. I get it, but it's part of the game of football, playing in the elements. Supposedly, star bonds are going to expire at the end of the month. They could probably renew that, talking about the Kansas side, to try to re-spark talks and lure the teams over to that side of the border. But we'll see what ends up happening here. You guys got to let me know your thoughts in the comments on the possibilities. You want to stay at Arrowhead, have that rebuilt, fixed up. If the Royals move on, you could potentially build all new stuff over there, practice facility in the works, have everything upgraded, because that's the biggest knock on the Chiefs right now. Not enough room, outdated practice facility, and all that when you look at the player report cards. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?